For this week's RSPW Rewind, I thought we would go back in the Wayback Machine after a very insightful look back, I thought, last week about the debut of Goldust, some divided opinion about the character and his debut, his arrival on television in WWE. I thought we would go back and see what people were saying about the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, a very polarizing figure in the RSPW universe, from what I can see. First, a post from Cactus MY from September 17, 1995. At the time, Shawn was in the middle of his third and final run as the Intercontinental Champion. The title of the post, "What the hell is Hickenbottom trying to do? Make us sick?" When the WWF fans are about 90% to 10% men, why have Shawn strip? Makes me sick. So, I guess Cactus was no fan of Shawn Michaels and his strip teases. Lisa Nelson had a different view. Do you really think the men and women ratio in pro wrestling is that big? I don't think so. As being a fan for the last 10 years, I've seen women increase in great numbers during the matches, or at the matches. As a woman, Michaels' butt shaking is great. He's extremely good looking and has a nice butt to boot. You know, I wonder what the reaction would be if a man posted something on Twitter these days about Becky Lynch or Sasha Banks like this. He would be called a pig so quickly, the tweet would be posted not 10 seconds later. It is interesting, the double standard, I do have to say. But anyway, Lisa goes on. Vince must think so too, otherwise this wouldn't be going on now, would it? To dream that maybe the WWF will produce an R-rated video of Shawn doing other things. Vince would potentially have a gold mine at his feet. Lisa can hardly contain herself. Chris Quigley chimes in. He says, "My sister prefers Bret Hart to Shawn Michaels. She says Shawn ranks up there right after John Bon Jovi and the guy who played Zack on Saved by the Bell." I love Shawn Michaels being ranked behind Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell. See, me personally, I was always a Lark Voorhees guy, myself. I always had a thing for Lisa Turtle. Then we have what may be my favorite of the posts this week. From John Curtis Holmes on May 18, 1996. The day before the infamous curtain call at Madison Square Garden. This was the day before the curtain call at MSG. In a post titled, "The Reason for Shawn Michaels' Jealousy." I think I've figured out why so many of the male contingent of RSPW hates Shawn Michaels so much. I think they're just jealous because all the girls love him and because of his looks. As a result, all the guys are jealous of Shawn because they wish they could look like him. I have a problem similar to Shawn's. I, too, am a very good-looking male. And so many other guys at school are jealous of me because all the girls want me. I don't have an arrogant attitude and I'm not cocky about my good looks, but guys seem to resent my ability to attract women. I've had a lot of girlfriends and I've been nice to all of them, but why are guys so jealous of me because of it? I think Shawn Michaels has the same problem that I do. Regardless of his impressive work rate and his charisma, some guys just resent him because he gets the females like I do. This is my opinion on why so much of RSPW, very male-oriented, dislike Shawn as champion. He's got it all, much like I do, and some people are just jealous of that. He's really worked hard to fulfill the dream of a 12-year-old boy, and I wish you guys would cut him some slack. A bunch of you will probably want to flame me for my opinion, but if you do, then it's just further proof that you're jealous of me because I am a ladies' man. Basically, they hate us because they ain't us, is what he's saying. John has a very high opinion of himself. It's gotta be hard, man, right? Walking around like that, looking good. I feel so sorry. I wish these guys would, back then in, what was it, 96? If they had a GoFundMe, I would have contributed to this guy's GoFundMe. Chris responds, but Shawn is not that good looking. I mean, for a wrestler, maybe the girls would find him attractive, but how many good looking male wrestlers are there? Really, none. There are about 3 that could pass off as above average looking human beings. Shawn, Brett, and Leif Cassidy. Shawn Michaels has 1 eyebrow across his forehead, hair like a girl, a strange looking mouth, etc. What does that even mean? A strange looking mouth. Why is he looking at his mouth? Anyway. For a wrestler, he may be the Heartbreak Kid, but in the real world, ha! I love that. Unibrow HBK. The fact that Chris lumped Al Snow into this list of most good-looking male wrestlers makes me think that Al was lurking on RSPW in 1996 under the name Chris. A few days later, on May 23rd, Phillips responded and disagreed with Chris's assessment. The anonymous wrestling fan who died last year, leaving Shawn Michaels $2.5 million in his or her will, would probably disagree with that assessment. And the women who approached Shawn in the club in Syracuse, which sparked the attack, would agree as well. Unless it was the 1-2-3 kid that they were after. Of course, Syracuse is... And I tried to find some posts about that, but, that was the attack in 95 where Shawn was beaten up in the club. But the inheritance story, I wanted to just take a moment here to talk a little bit about that. That inheritance story is true. At least the story is. Shawn himself has never confirmed it, but he's also never denied it. It was first mentioned... I wanted to go back and see, when was this story first mentioned? How did this story originate? And from what I can ascertain, this story was first mentioned on a wrestling hotline. That Shawn Michaels had inherited $2.5 million from a wrestling fan that he did not know who had passed away. And I guess they left their money or their estate to him. Dave Meltzer then chimed in. He reported on it in the January 15th, 1996 issue of the Wrestling Observer. He said that Michaels had hoped to keep the whole thing quiet. He wasn't happy that it got out. It actually happened a few months earlier. Bruce Pritchard, I can tell you that, Bruce Pritchard mentioned this on one of his podcasts with Conrad a couple of years ago. They had done a show on Scott Hall. But on the show, Pritchard seemed to think that it happened a lot earlier. So timeline-wise, according to Pritchard, this would have happened in 93, around the time that Shawn had quit the company after failing a drug test. Instead of paying the fine, he decided to just go ahead and quit. And they had to strip him of the Intercontinental Championship. It's possible that Pritchard just has his timeline wrong on this, because by all accounts, this is something that would have happened probably in 95. WWE held a press conference in January of 96. If you remember... in kayfabe on TV, they had his doctor, Shawn's doctor, talking about his condition and his comeback. This was after he had the post-concussion syndrome angle with Owen Hart. They said, he came back too quickly, and he collapsed, and it was post-concussion syndrome. And they were just trying to build up sympathy for him to come back and win the Royal Rumble and go on to win the championship. Health-wise, he was fine. He got the shit kicked out of him by those Marines in September, but he healed up. He was fine. But they had a press conference, I figured it was just all for entertainment, but maybe they had actual media members there. In January of 96, to announce his comeback at the Royal Rumble. And somebody asked him at the press conference about this whole inheritance story. And this was, again, in the Observer at the time. They say that when he got asked the question, Shawn got very angry and very defensive, and he said, no comment, and don't ever bring that up again. So I think there definitely is smoke to the fire. Again, I don't think I've ever heard Michaels address it and confirm the story, but I don't think he's ever denied it. I don't know if he took the money. I don't know if he did not take the money. But that inheritance story has been around for a very long time. It's funny to see people back in 95 and 96 talking about it here on RSPW. June 3rd, 1996. a post by Ken titled, "Who Almost Killed Shawn Michaels?" I am in the 4th grade. I'm trying to find the answer for this trivia question. Who almost killed Shawn Michaels in Syracuse, New York 3 years ago? John tried to help out this young man. He said it was 9 thugs with military-style haircuts. They were very bad men. They jumped Shawn after he was at a nightclub. Do you know what a nightclub is? It's a place where people go to unwind and drink, which is illegal for you to do. Listen to your parents when they tell you not to stay out late at night. If Shawn had a curfew, like you probably do, little Kenny, he wouldn't have gotten into trouble that night in Syracuse. Oh, by the way, it wasn't 3 years ago, it was less than a year ago. I'm glad I could help. Good luck in school, and always do your homework and eat your vegetables. By the way, how about that Sonny? Wouldn't you just like to? And then he put ... He said, oh, what the hell, RSPW has gone to hell, so I can't make it any worse. So that comes from John. We then skip ahead to November 22nd, 1996. A post from Michael titled, Shawn Michaels Getting Booed at Survivor Series. I was kind of baffled that because Shawn got booed at MSG, everyone here on RSPW thinks he should just turn heel. I mean, it's not as if Shawn was getting booed while fighting a heel. He was fighting Sid, who was one of the top 3 faces in the promotion. Bret Hart got booed when he was fighting Undertaker last year. Hulk Hogan got booed when he eliminated Sid Justice at the Royal Rumble a few years back. Am I the only one who thinks RSPW is overreacting to Shawn's reception at Survivor Series? Wrestling fans overreacting? Pfft, come on. Never. That would never happen. He continues, he says, funny because I went to an MSG house show in August and Shawn got the most humongous pop I had ever heard at a house show. It was absolutely amazing. I just don't get why so many people are so negative about him. He goes out, he works incredibly hard, and seemingly always wrestles the best match on the show. So even back in '96, we have wrestling fans complaining about the fickle nature of other wrestling fans when it comes to the top guys. I do think Michael makes a great point, though. You know, Shawn was wrestling Sid. And Sid, when he came back in '96 after the Ultimate Warrior left, or got fired, was over to a ridiculous degree with the audience. I don't know that it ever really translated to big business. I don't know that Sid, was selling out the houses and selling tons of merch and making a big difference in that respect. But when he would walk out, they were loud. And he would do the fist bump, and he would tell, who's the man? And they would say, you're the man. And he was just the coolest thing at the time on television. I mean, you tell me, who came off as cooler that night in Madison Square Garden? Sid? Or the Chippendales dancing guy with Jose the grandfather in his corner? I mean, let's be honest. It was Sid. I do have one last Shawn Michaels related post, but before I get to it, in doing my research this week, I came across a post about another Click member, a fellow friend of Shawn's, and it is a post that caught my eye from December 2nd, 1996, and I had to think twice before opening it. The title was Nash's Shaft. I had 2 options. I could continue scrolling past it and have to live with the mystery for the rest of my life about what the hell this was about, or I could just say fuck it and open it. So of course I decided to open it. In order to protect the identity of the poster, I will not use their name, but I will tell you that their email address indicates they had, at the time, attended Brown University. So this was a student. This is what it said. I haven't read anything about this yet, but did anyone else think that Nash's version of Shaft, while doing the play-by-play on NWO's Saturday Night, was the funniest thing they heard on a wrestling program in years? He's a complicated man, and no one understands him but the giant, Scott Hall. All of these Nash back to WWF rumors make no sense. He seems to be having the time of his life. As part of the NWO, what reasons would he have to leave? He rarely has to wrestle, and he never has to job. He also gets to show his humorous side that Vince never took advantage of when he was Diesel. Whew. I was mentally prepared to be scarred for life when I opened that post, so I dodged a bullet there. I wasn't the only one who felt that way. Viz H says, and here I thought this thread would be about something important to RSPWers, like the size of Nash's shaft. So from Nash's shaft, we skip ahead to one last post from March 20th, 1997 by Mark Jensen, a post titled Shawn Michaels Makes Me Sick. Well, this sounds encouraging. This was after Shawn lost his smile. He's found his smile. Let's see, he didn't have the job to Bret at WrestleMania. Bret is now a mega heel, and Shawn is left as one of the biggest baby faces in all of wrestling. Yeah, I'm sure he's found his smile. He didn't want to do a job to Dean Douglas, and he did not want to do a job to Bret. Now there's a real professional. Vince's smile from ear to ear on Raw is the straw that broke the camel's back. Why didn't you just bend over and ask Shawn to fuck you up the ass, Vince? Fuck you, Shawn Michaels. You make me sick. The Maritimer says, same here. I'm just glad I was able to do something about it when I was in Syracuse back in the fall of '95 because a bunch of us... oops, never mind. That comes from the Maritimer. Dave says, Shawn Michaels makes me sick too. I rarely post to RSPW, but this got me thinking. Where did Michaels as champion get the WWF? Just ask Nitro, they'll tell you. I've been a diehard fan for 15 years and I'll never switch to WCW, but Vince makes it awfully tempting. He ran Raw into the ground with Michaels, turned off many of the male fans with this stripper boy, and now he's giving him a push again? I'll go along with Bret on this one. Bret has given his all for 12 years. 12 WrestleManias, I believe. And McMahon thinks it's funny to have his boy toy lead the pack. Sorry, but Bret has given his all and was not ashamed to job to Sid. Well, I'll correct Dave here. He specifically says in his entrance music that he is not your boy toy. I just had to make that correction. Where's Michael's knee injury? If it's a legitimate injury, keep him off camera. If it's drugs, or if Michaels is too much of a crybaby to job, then he has no right to be there. I know it's all scripted, but Vince, you can do better. Bret's legacy deserves it. Sign Bret. I mean Dave. It sure sounds like something Bret would say. But that comes from Dave. And there you have it. Shawn Michaels, making people sick since 1997.